Hello, my name is Thomas Erickson, and for my comms final, I'll be discussing communication, specifically in relation between citizen scientists like birdwatchers and professional ornithologists, and yeah, technology's role in that. Oh, come on. There we go. Oh shit. Okay. So to start, there's a picture of a snowy owl that I took in Anchorage. And the point of this image, I guess, is a kind of sparks my thoughts of this how this interview came to be. I took this photo in Anchorage and I got the location from a group chat of hobby bird watchers that just do it for fun. And I wouldn't have had this opportunity otherwise. But just this snowy owl spotting is it's rare in Anchorage. And so this could have scientific value to ornithologists that are studying populations of snowy owls, knowing where they're going and how many there are. A sighting like this is potentially valuable, and without technology, they probably wouldn't have obtained information on this sighting. And I think it's really interesting that emerging technology has been able to connect citizen scientists or kind of enable that enable people to become citizen scientists and more easily communicate to professionals and make their observations meaningful. Um, and so ultimately, that's a topic of communication, which is why I picked it as my um, final assignment. And I also am interested in bird watching. If you that wasn't obvious, I guess. So that also has a career kind of side to it. I interviewed Zach Poland. He is from Anchorage, Alaska, and he is a wildlife biologist for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, specializing in migratory non-game birds, which is pretty broad. There's a lot of birds that would fall in that category in Alaska. But I don't want to say more importantly, but additionally, he is the eBird coordinator for Alaska. This is a one-of-one job title in the world. And to explain on what that is, eBird is the software, or maybe more like a database, depending on who you ask. It's a website and it's an app for um, citizens or enthusiasts of birds to log their sightings of birds whenever they see one or feel like submitting one. And whenever they upload that data, it'll be saved for them. And it'll also be sent to the large database. Kind of, I think it's handled by Cornell University, which is kind of like the leading ornithology university in the nation. And then that information can be used by scientists all around the world who are studying bird populations and what's changing. So again, since he's in charge of this software in terms of how it's used in Alaska, how the data gets kind of presented, and also how to ensure that people actually use it in the state of Alaska, he's a great opportunity to learn about this topic. Um, I Apart from that, I wanted to keep the topic, like the questions, a little more broad. I didn't really probe into specifics about his job, mostly because I don't know a whole lot about it. And also, if there's something that he's interested or thinks I should really know about, I wanted to let him talk about that as much as possible, because I think that'd just be better for the both of us and makes for a greater interview. Key points that we discussed were, I guess, start the idea that as being like the bridge alongside eBird, Mr. Poland has to kind of mediate a discussion between, like a broadly speaking, a discussion between um, professional scientists and the recreational bird watchers, and that social exchange theory, I think, plays into this kind of interaction because ultimately both sides can offer things to the other, but both sides also want things from the other. And this like push and pull has to be very carefully balanced in order for both groups to get something out of it. But in the end, they've done a pretty good job at keeping this kind of relationship intact. So the picture here is a screenshot from my phone of the eBird app. This is actually taken from UAF campus, but just from one end, from the bird watchers end of the conversation or relationship, There's the option to see locations nearby, see what species have been seen there of all time, and as well as what has recently been there. And so for a personal bird watcher, this is really good, important information because if I want to go see, if I want to see a snow goose, which could be pretty rare, I can check locations, say, oh, someone saw a snow goose here 2 days ago, or maybe someone saw this 6 hours ago. That's really, really cool. Whenever I want to go and make the most out of my time while bird watching. Additionally, they have a rare bird alert mailing list. So on a daily basis, you'll get an email about rare bird sightings in your area, which I think is also really cool for those who are dedicated. Um, but that's just one end of the relationship. Like I said, on the other end, there is the fact that whenever we use the app, we are kind of automatically pulled up. On the bottom, it kind of shows explore, but on the left is submit, and that's kind of like the opening um, page when you open the app. And so you're already encouraged to, whenever you go out, regardless of if you see that rare bird or if you're out there for 3 hours or 2 minutes, to log anything that you see, because again, all that information can be used by scientists to actually have meaningful impact. But as a bridge, it's up to Mr. Poland to hear what both sides have to say and to modify or request modifications of eBird in order to satisfy their needs and to keep this kind of symbiotic relationship going. And that actually it requires like impression management between the two sides. Like it kind of ties in the Professor Rocky video about how you're perceived and how you have two kind of faces, like a personal and professional. Um, Technically, this is all kind of professional faces because it's his job, but Mr. Poland kind of has two faces here, one for either end of this relationship. So to start with the personal one, he has the bird watchers, and I think this is a really interesting topic to me because part of it ties into how I first met him. But he goes to talks as part of his job to kind of encourage people or to like a Q&A and how to use this app. And depending on how interested they are in the hobby, he can make more use out of them, if that makes sense, to kind of get them into the meaningful citizen science kind of like path. So if someone is not really consider themselves to be a bird watcher, but maybe is just interested, showed up to a talk or something and likes birds, you can encourage them to go bird watching and just gain interest on the environmental issues surrounding them. If someone already is interested or already does bird watch and knows a thing or two, they're more encouraged to take these like logs of what they've seen because that's actually important and that can actually be used. And then those who already do that, he encourages to go into like kind of blind spots or unknown areas and record for shorter amount of times because somehow that's more scientifically valuable. I'm not an expert, obviously, but that's kind of those kinds of like details actually help him a lot. But one way that he really reinforces the relationship between them is by leading by example, which I thought was really neat because that's actually how I first met him. He not like he goes out biking in Anchorage, and along popular areas because that coincidentally is also where there's a lot of birds. But he'll make his own checklists in public. And so I first met him biking out in Westchester Lagoon in Anchorage. And I only learned about his job not because like I was asking, oh, are you a bird expert? No, it was because I was looking at birds. He was also looking at birds next to me, and I was like asking some questions. We kind of got a conversation going, and then he brought in the fact that he is taking a checklist. He offered to share it with me, which is a nice feature, um, and explained that it's actually valuable. And so, then, like non-verbally, just showing that already he was out there taking these checklists using the software that he's promoted speaks really well to both him and the software, which is ultimately what he's aiming to do. And so in this sense, kind of actions spoke much louder than words when I like first impression wise. On the other end of the bridge, or I guess the professional face of his professional face, I guess, he has to communicate with scientists. And part of his job being the eBird coordinator for Alaska is he gets access to all the sightings in the state, and it's his job to kind of present them and show them, make sure that they're accurate in order to that like give them to scientists from other parts of the country. But being a citizen science project, it comes under a lot more scrutiny than traditional research methods because, again, everyday Joes are taking sightings and they can make mistakes. They can inflate numbers. They can get the wrong species in. These are all concerns and they're valid concerns. But it's up to Mr. Pone to compare these to traditional studies, see if they actually align and can be determined to be used as reliable information, um, and also to see opportunities like getting out into remote parts of the state. Wherever it's needed, he has to be able to listen to what the scientific community wants, more than just like they want accurate data. They want sometimes data from this season at this time of this species, and he has to make sure that he can go back, kind of relay to the public and ensure that well, maybe not ensure, but try his best to see if that can happen. Um, so yeah, I like bird watching, and I don't know if I'll make it my career, but I definitely want a job in biology, which is kind of broadly applicable. But fortunately, all the things we talked about here were pretty applicable, not just in careers, but in everyday goals. But specifically in careers, being able to know your audience is pretty important because if I want to become in charge of a project of my own, or if I want to get a raise, or if I want to get someone off my back, I'm just kind of thinking there's a broad applications and a lot of upsides that can come from knowing how to assess your audience. And I think being able to assess an audience and their values and what they want is it's basically just knowing how to assess problems. And I'm going to run into a lot of problems in my career or and in my life just in general. There's a lot of problems to deal with, but being able to handle those problems efficiently is just huge. That's just what success is. Um, I also want to live outside of Alaska, and it's going to be good to know how to meet people or like interact with people of different cultures, or not necessarily get used to it, but to be aware, and know maybe this is how I should approach differently because I'm not, I guess, in my safe zone, I guess, of my familiar culture. And that could mean, minor differences between here and Washington, or it could be something huge between here and like Madagascar. But just like knowing what can be different, how it can be different, and just knowing that things will be different, and knowing how to approach that accordingly is going to be important. I also really liked his example of uh, leading by example, mostly because it just hit very close because that's how I met him. Um, and leading by example, I think, is just a really great way to build relationships in a career because ultimately, if you're seen as a leader, you'll hopefully get promoted to be a leader, which is pretty good when you want to move up in the ranks. Um, like I said, being able to meet, uh, be really nice to meet a bunch of people to get a lot of perspectives and just kind of to hone in on my ability to uh, know who I'm talking to and the best way to approach a conversation and maintain a relationship. But I think university has a really good opportunity there just because there's so many students and so many faculty that just have so many backgrounds. There's different colleges, you could talk to like a engineering professor or major, or you could talk to a fine arts TA or something. There's just so many different people backgrounds. I can go all over campus and just meet so many new people. And, in this picture, I have some friends who are from out of state. And they have different views on things. And I think it's just knowing where to find common ground is a really important skill because I will meet a lot of new strangers in the future. But this is like the ultimate place to just really get that practice in because, like I said, everyone's from everywhere. Um, yeah, to wrap things up, Uh, if I wanted to serve in, I guess, serve my community through ornithology and kind of be that bridge myself, or really just being a bridge between any two parties, because ultimately I'm included within some cultures, and not all those cultures would overlap without me. Being able to make connections between otherwise unfamiliar groups requires being able to um, assess both groups and appeal to both groups. And I think that keeping those relationships is going to be a really, really good skill to have. Uh, as well as, like I said, the leading by example. I really just like that example so much because that's how I met him. Um, and having those skills is going to really put me out there in the career world, no matter where I go. Biology, ornithology or not, I could be an engineer, I could be a politician. Just having the ability to know who I'm talking to in order to get where I want to be is hugely important. And frequent interactions out in the university setting, uh, now is now is the best time to be talking because everyone everyone I meet is has a different story, and it probably won't be this easy to meet new people ever again in my life. But like I said, thanks to this interview with Mr. Poland, I now get to see every like chance to meet a new stranger as a chance to develop my skills. Yeah. Uh, thank you.